All right, so welcome to Fishing is My Summer Job. I'm having a banner morning this morning. It's been incredible. If you watch, there's some little circles out here. I think it's shad moving through, and every time we get a lot of circles, we'll get bites. At one point, I think I had all 3 rods going. I had one getting pulled out of the rocks. I caught it before it went in the water. So, hey, stay tuned. Fishing is my summer job.
Alright, for those of you who've watched my videos before, have probably seen this spot. This is a stone dock down in Bay City. They don't let you fish here when they're moving stone, but if there's nothing going on, like the weekend, you usually sneak in and fish. Same thing in the evening. And believe it or not, the sportsmen in the area do a really nice job of keeping it clean. Very rarely do you see anything from the fishermen. Once in a while you see where some kids tried to sneak down there and do stuff they're not supposed to, so you see some beer cans or something, but otherwise it's usually picked up nice and clean. So my plan this morning was to come out. I was fishing, I had a lot of shrimp, I had a lot of cherry garlic hot dogs, and I had a few rock bass that I was going to use as cut bait that I was given by some fishermen the night before. What I noticed is the fish were biting everything. It didn't really matter, but the bigger fish were taking the cut bait. And it was nonstop action. If you watch, I got 2 rods going right here. And this has kind of happened to me, I think 2 or 3 times. I think there was actually a point in time where I actually had all 3 bouncing, only 2 of them only got hooked up. There my rod went over. You know, that's kind of the trick when you're fishing that riprap. And if you watch me walking, it's got like loose stone on top of these pieces of cement that move constantly. Kind of a challenge to walk around on. But the fishing is great. Now, what I noticed in the morning was that when I got there, it was a little calmer than this. That there were some little circles popping up at the top, which I believe were shad. And every time they would come into the area where I was fishing, I would have 1 rod go, maybe 2, maybe 3. And it was just kind of non-stop battle. Here you see that the bigger cat's trying to get back in. The one who pulled that rod over really wasn't all that big, which was kind of amazing. But like I say, it was kind of a cool morning. You know, we're fishing in late May. The air temp was about 50 when I started, probably 70 when I got done. It warmed up right away. And the fishing didn't slow down all morning long. Now, it seemed to be best in spurts. There would be spurts where you catch 2 or 3 fish at a time, and then it'd slow down. And I was a little surprised I didn't get any sheep's head on this trip. So here I am, I'm re-solidifying a rod, and if you take a look down beyond me as I'm walking back, I don't have all the rods in the water very often. It probably, I think I cast and then it started bouncing. I had some tangles, and so after that I started swapping things up and changing modes where I was running just all cut bait, and then the size went up. So I think I got 15 fish, maybe more. The biggest ones came actually after all my batteries were dead on my GoPro. I got a couple at the end of the video you're watching. Now I wear a size 14 shoe, and these fish are longer than 2 14 shoes, which measures out anywhere from 28 to 32, 33 inches. So some pretty nice catfish. And like I say, here's another good fight, so enjoy.
Big one.
Now this fish ended up being a little bit bigger than a lot of them. I went with a net. In a moment, you're going to see that I'm going for my lip grippers. Normally on these catfish, if I can get my hand across their head and hold them, I will. I won't mess with the grips. I'd rather, just do it that route. But the bigger ones, and I got pretty good sized hands, if I can't get my hand around and hold it good that way, I'll get the grips out. I'm going for the grips on this fish, and then I think I go from right here. I'm going to get them unhooked, and then I get a hit on another rod. Now, you notice I only had the 2 rods in. The 3rd rod was still out because it got stuff tangled up, and I just couldn't keep 3 rods in the water. So this rod's bouncing a little bit. I don't notice it yet. The catfish here is a pretty solid one, not the biggest one I got all day, but it was wide enough you could barely get your hand across the head to control it. I'm trying to get a weight on it so I can see how much it weighs. That's probably 6 or 7 pounds looking at it now, but and I got some way bigger than that. And you know, I notice here about right now, I notice this rod bouncing again.
Fish over there.
Now, I thought I was going to be able to just release the clip and then flop the fish off. Instead, it falls into the rocks. Now, I did take the fish and put it back in the water. I respect the game here. It did kind of flip onto the rocks for a minute. But these are catfish. These are pretty tough animals. And it was no worse for the wear when I finally did put it in, although I edited that out because it was after I landed this fish and unhooked. And it's like, you guys don't want to watch me walking around in circles on the gravel, going down to grab fish on these videos. You want to see fish being caught. So that's what I did. So rig-wise, I ran a couple different rigs. I started off with, this one is still shrimp, I can see. I was running one of those Kentucky double rigs where you use that loop knot, and I have different hook sizes on there. And I basically got one shrimp up off the bottom a little bit, one a little closer to the bottom the way it's going. My other rigs that I run, I ran a double Kentucky rig with hot dogs on it too on the other rod, and then I was running a slip sinker rig with what I use for flatheads a lot, and a lot of big channels where I use either cut bait or live bait. And what I have is probably a foot to a foot and a half of line, snelled to I think today I was using a size 6 circle hook, maybe size 8. And I'm using either cut bait or live bait. Usually 3 or 4 beads above that, and then I run a spin and glow. Now, for those of you who are maybe down south and don't know what a spin and glow is,
I
basically a piece of styrofoam that's got these little propeller blades on it. In my next video, so make sure you come back in here, I will show you what my rig looks like. And it works a lot like the Demon Dragons that you guys run down south. And it holds your bait up a little bit, and then it spins, putting a little vibration in the water, which then helps the fish hone in on it. And you know, it just kind of helps everything keep going, and it's worked really well for me. I went to it because I couldn't find Demon Dragons, and I used to fish lake trout a lot. Lakers love spinning glows, so I had a few big ones. I tested it a few times, and it does pretty well. Now, I have seen on the Catfish Bait and Tactics site, somebody else has got a spin and glow type rig, which is real similar to mine. Sometimes I put rattles on them, sometimes I don't, but it does seem to work. And I think it gets a piece of cut bait just off the bottom, you know, just enough that it makes it a little easier for them to find. And if you're fishing live bait, it just pulls up on them a little enough that every time that fish kind of wants to hesitate and sit still, it's got to fight just a little bit more. And I think that really works well. Now, the section of river that I'm fishing, I've never caught a flathead at this spot, but I know within a short distance of there, they get some monster flatheads. So they seem to hold more so in the cover than they do on this rock and riprap. And by the way, I fished this with my sonar before, fishing for smallmouth. There's actually a few in here too, in Sheepshead. This drops off pretty steep because they used to, well, when they bring in the boats with the stone, they pull it right against the edge, and then they offload it with big conveyor belts. So it's deep enough to float a freighter in there. So it's probably, I don't know, 10, 15 feet deep, depending on what the water level is in the wind. And it goes. Now you can see here it's starting to warm up a little bit. I got rid of the fleas. The guys in the boat, I don't know if you can see it here, I think they were fighting Sheepshead at the same time as I caught this. And it was kind of weird. All I caught were cats, and all they caught were Sheepshead, because we talk as they would drift by. And this is a little later in the morning. What was interesting is even though the fishing slowed a little, the quality of the fish went up. Every one of these that come in from here till my camera dies and then after were nice fish. Maybe, 7 to I think the biggest one might have been 15 pounds.
I guess that one ain't
It
too
was
bad.
probably the biggest channel I got this year, and that was probably 5, 6 pounder. But it's like this pretty standard fish for the river here, and like I say, there are a lot of guys on different areas of the river fishing for walleyes, and the white bass are still in there running. There's a little bit of everything in the Saginaw River right now. All right, and like I say, for those of you who fish circle hooks, you know this, but if you don't fish circle hooks, you have to wait for that fish to kind of take the bait and get it down in there so that when it pulls, the hook comes up and gets caught in the side of the mouth. There were a few fish I kind of rushed a little bit. I think this is the one I rushed a little bit, and then I got lazy and thought, oh yeah, I can just swing this one in, and it was a little too big to swing, and next thing you know, it's popping off the hook. So yeah, just have to watch and see. But like I say, it was a nice trip. I had a lot of fun. I fished for maybe 3 hours or so. It was just kind of nonstop action, especially right away before the boat started moving up and down the river real hard. Then what happens is they drop. This is a wake section, so the bigger boats will rough up the water a little hard. You can see that's a better fish, and here's where I get the bright idea. I bet you it looks like it's hooked good, and it's not. And at least the hook didn't get me. That's the most important thing. I think I lost my bait. I had to crawl down the rocks to get that fish in the water because he gets a little stuck. Well, there's my spin and glow rig again. It's got the slip sinker, and I had cut bait on it. And as I'm tossing one out, the next one's going. And it was kind of nonstop, like I say, like this most of the morning. This particular place, by the way, along here, I don't think I'm really burning a spot. Most people don't come to this place and catch and keep these, and it's the Saginaw River. It's got a lot of things that Dow Chemicals dumped in there over the years. I don't know if I'd eat a fish that lived in there year round. The fish migrates maybe. But like I say, this isn't even my favorite spot to fish on here. There was somebody sitting, so I just drove down the bank and looked for a spot that looked good to me, and that's where I set up. So there's nothing real particular about it. I've fished pretty much every square inch of this over the years, and it just seems like if the catfish are there, you are going to catch them, and they're there right now. Throughout the year, it'll be better at sometimes, slower at other times. So, like I say, as the video's wrapping up, here's just some little stills I got of some other fish. There's a pretty solid, looks like a male. Uh, Here's one sitting next to the cooler just by comparison. So that's, if you've seen one of those coolers, that's the size. Here's one next to one of my feet. A good big fish. And here's one with two size 14 hokas sitting there. That tells you how big that fish is. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit subscribe. Hey, I'd love to have some comments. If you've got something you want to put on there. I'm hoping to get out flat fishing or flathead fishing this week, although Memorial Day's coming up and I got a lot of other stuff going on. So I might not make it this week for that. But hey, thanks again and have a great day. Remember, fishing is my summer job.